We're at the end of this series where we're really looking at Jesus's training program for his disciples, and he's on his way to be crucified. So this is kind of the review session for what his disciples need to know about what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And so I think this is pretty important for any of us who are already following Jesus to go, all right, what is he calling us to? What was important to Jesus that he was emphasizing as he was on his way to his suffering and death? And for anybody that's thinking about being a follower of Jesus, that's exploring Christianity, that's asking questions.
Here we are again, Anson.
Hey, Tucker.
Last episode for the calling series.
Here it is.
It's kind of sad.
I'm always surprised when we do these series at our church. You know, when we start a new one, it's like, okay, we're going to be in this one for a while. They fly.
They do fly by.
They fly by. Especially when you have a couple of them in the middle where you have a ice storm and a snowstorm. And
that definitely doesn't help.
Yeah.
Because, that was just like a vortex of time being stuck at the house.
It was.
Both of those weekends. So,
yeah.
But we made it to the end.
Here we
persevered through the winter weather, and we're here in the last week of the series. So what we wanted to do on this episode is take more of just a high-level overview of what we talked about in the series as a whole, which is what does Jesus call his followers to do? And again, you've said it before, this is kind of the things that Jesus felt most important to tell his followers towards the end of his ministry.
Yeah.
So it should be top of mind for us, and it should be things that we're thinking about and trying to implement in our own lives.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for anybody that's reading through the Gospels, you're not going to find it framed the way that we're framing it.
Right.
Like what I'm noticing in the way that Luke has organized, the Gospel of Luke has organized these teachings of Jesus, is that they fall into what I see as 7 clear categories of calling. And so that's what I'm trying to draw attention to help us get a handle on the big picture. But when you read through it, I mean, it's not presented that way. It's story, it's parable, it's episode, it's someone challenges him and he answers their questions. So when you read through the Bible, when you read through the Gospels, it shows up as sort of one story after another, after another, after another. But when you spend some time with it, you get to see, oh, okay, Luke has put these few together because there's a theme here. So he might record a parable of Jesus and then follow that up with a couple of different episodes or teachings or Q&A interactions that follow on that theme. So that's really what we're doing. That's what we've taken Luke toward the end of chapter 9 through chapter 15 and said, okay, how are these organized? And that's where we got our 7 clear calls from Jesus.
And I think what you've done for our congregation is make it to where we can actually remember these things better.
Right.
Like,
hopefully.
Because we went through a lot of scripture. So
a lot of content. Yeah.
I think the goal behind, the 7 titles and 7 kind of themes is, okay, we went through a lot and Jesus said a lot. How can we take some of these things with us and actually apply it?
Yeah. That's a good observation. And that's always the goal, right? Is to have something that can stick with us. So hopefully these are a little bit sticky. And helpful for us.
Yeah. So what we'll do is I'll go through and I'll kind of give, I'll tee up each one and then you can expound on it how you want as you've been reflecting on it as we've gone through the series. Does that sound good?
I like it.
Okay. So, week 1 was the call to go, and I remember specifically, the drill for this was being called to go and bring peace to someone.
Yeah, speak a
And
word of
yeah,
peace.
speak a word of peace over someone, which I think is just really good timing just for
Mhm.
cultural climate we're in. Our world
Oh, yeah.
needs some peace.
You think?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I appreciated that being the
yeah,
first drill. It was a good
yeah.
way to kick off the series.
Yeah, I thought so too, and that was, like, the first Sunday after New Year, if we
Yeah,
can believe it. That seems like ancient history
I
now.
know.
Um, but yeah, and we saw that from, Luke chapter 10 toward the beginning of the chapter where Jesus sent out these 72 disciples of his, and their primary calling was, he said, "Go into the towns around Galilee and, it's like knock on a door of a home
Mhm,
and speak peace. And
mhm,
if they receive that peace and receive you into their home, then stay and speak the message of the kingdom.
mhm,
Give them the gospel, give them the good news about Jesus, and um, be a peacemaker, be a bringer of peace." So that was right at the beginning of this whole section. Um, and so, yeah, I think that's part of the primary calling was is to go
mhm.
and not be people who stir up strife or pick
Yeah,
fights or um, anything like that, but be people who do bring peace. And you're right. I mean, in our culture, everything's so polarized. Certainly politically, but socially. I mean, we saw it with the Super Bowl and
mhm,
just the controversy about the halftime show and you know, what's appropriate and what's being signaled and all the
mhm,
things. Um, yeah, just lots of division over lots of things.
mhm.
And
It's almost everywhere you turn.
yeah, yeah. And we've seen later in these stories how Jesus was clear, not everybody's going to receive my peace, but the call to go is to offer it to whoever would receive it.
Mhm.
And I think that's a timely offer in our world. Where is peace? It's with Jesus.
Yeah, yeah, and I like how you're pointing that out, like, that peace is supposed to be brought to anyone and everyone. It
Mhm.
doesn't have, um, qualifications that come with that. He just
Mhm.
told them to go and bring peace
Yeah.
to wherever they ended up,
Yeah.
regardless of who the people were or
Yeah.
what they were like or what
Yeah.
their opinions were or beliefs or,
Yeah.
you know, and I think that's a good word for us
Yeah.
today.
And then there's also just the inward peace that we need. I
Mm,
remember that week, the,
mhm,
the drill was to just find somebody in your life that you can speak a word of peace to. And it might be somebody that is going through something that's just they're troubled by it.
mhm,
They're unsettled by whatever they're going through. And that was an easy one for me early in the week because just a few people who I know what's going on in their life, um, was able to just shoot a text and say, "Hey, just want you to know I'm thinking about you this week, praying for you, and specifically praying that you would have peace in the midst of the situation that you're in." And a lot of times, I mean, goodness, I had a phone call just this week from somebody who is dealing with a family situation, and it's not going to be easily resolvable.
mhm,
It's going to be a journey of reconciliation and forgiveness, and who knows what path
mhm,
it's going to go on, but they're going to be on a path for a while.
mhm,
And really the day-to-day thing to pray for right now is for a sense of peace, even in the midst of things that are troubling and difficult. And that's part of what the gospel offers. It's the peace that passes understanding.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, peace is a big theme in the Bible,
mhm,
in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. And the fact that we're called to go and be agents of that peace, whether it's,
mhm,
sort of in the midst of a world of conflict or in the heart of someone who is struggling through a circumstance and everything in between. It's one of the fruits of the gospel.
mhm.
And we want more people to receive it.
Yeah, I've always loved that passage in Philippians 4, where Paul talks about the peace that surpasses understanding. And
Mhm.
that phrase sounds to me a little like churchy.
Yeah.
So the way I like to say it is it's a peace that doesn't make sense to have.
Mhm.
Like when you find yourself having peace in a situation where no one would expect you to have peace,
Yeah.
that's the peace that God offers.
Yeah.
And I think that's a powerful way that the Holy Spirit works in our lives
Yeah.
because it doesn't come from us
Yeah.
and it's a gift. So yeah, I loved week 1. Do you have a story where someone has brought peace to you?
Yeah. Just recently, um, I was sort of just recounting to somebody just the long journey of parenting and, the phase that we're in. And, my wife and I have been blessed with 5 kids, which is a wonderful thing,
Mhm.
but it's a commitment.
Mhm.
It's a long haul. And, so I was talking about just season of life kinds of things with an older father,
Mhm.
not my dad, but someone who has kids and who are all grown. And his statement to me was, "Sometimes time just has to pass.
Mm.
Like there's nothing you can do.
Mhm.
You're doing the right thing. It's just going to take time
Mhm.
to to get out from under some of the pressures that I'm feeling right now, or that you sort of generalizing it that we feel sometimes.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's just a matter of time needing to pass."
Yeah.
And so that didn't resolve anything,
Mhm.
didn't change anything in my circumstance, but it shifted my perspective and absolutely brought peace. Oh, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't even remember the specifics of our conversation, but I bet this might have been 3, 4 months ago. I bet 20 times, maybe 50 times. I've remembered that in the midst of something that I go, you know
Wow.
what? Time just needs to pass. Like it's okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Because it's easy for me. I'm very achievement oriented to get like spun up like,
Mm.
what can I do? What can I do? What
Yeah.
can I do? And it was like, nothing you can really do. So just
Yeah.
take a deep breath, have peace.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. It's cool that it stuck with you
Oh
that
yeah.
much, and I love the practical example of, like, it's not like you're going and saying to people, "Peace be with you," but it's like
Yeah.
something you say
Yeah.
can have the effect of bringing peace to
Oh
somebody,
yeah.
and
100%.
that's good.
Yeah. Do you have one? Do you have a story?
Of when someone's brought it to me?
Yeah. Or you, yeah.
Let's see.
Or how God's used you to help somebody else. Either way.
Yeah, actually, so I have a group of guys that I meet with every Tuesday, and we try and be vulnerable with each other, talk about what's going on in our lives. And I was expressing some difficulties I was having with a family member, and it was over the holidays. And and I got one buddy, and I just appreciate him so much because he's like, I don't have the Bible knowledge that you guys have, and he kind of feels embarrassed sometimes about it. And he's confessed that. But he said the most, like, powerful thing to me as we were talking about it, and
Mm-hmm.
he was like, "Well, I wonder, like, from this family member's perspective, like, are they acting this way because 'cause they're embarrassed to be around you, or they see, like, things going in your life and it makes them feel inferior?" And it just, like, completely
Hmm.
changed, like, how I viewed the situation, and yeah, it did bring a sense of peace. Like, I was
Mm-hmm.
all bent out of shape. I had talked to my counselor about it. I was
Yeah.
talking to them about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and just one simple question
Hmm.
and asking me to consider a different perspective. Yeah, it brought me a lot of peace.
That's great.
Yeah, it was a really
Cool.
cool moment.
Yeah. So
So
God has
yeah.
sent other people to go and bring us
Yeah.
peace. Thank you. That's
Yeah,
good. And
absolutely.
so that part of the call. So yeah, that's a
Mhm.
practical one for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's good. Week 2, we jumped in the call to love, and I had fun on the podcast episode with this one
Yeah.
because we just talked about, like, the practical, like, what does being part of a church community look like? Because
Yeah.
there was 3 aspects to it, which was serving,
Yeah.
learning, and depending.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of fun on that podcast episode. The sermon was great too, but
Yeah.
I particularly enjoyed the
Yeah,
conversation we
that
had
was a
there.
good conversation. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. So what was your biggest, I guess, as you've reflected on that one,
Yeah.
what has kind of bubbled up to the surface?
Yeah, we had a good so I'm a part of a community group just with some other, people that live out in our area, and, we don't meet every week. We meet once a month, and so our monthly dinner
Mm-hmm.
was this particular week. So we were
Oh, okay.
talking about
Gotcha.
the call to love,
Mm-hmm.
and, in the sermon, I created this thing called the love grid. So for
Yep.
each of
I
the
remember the love
categories,
grid.
serving others, learning from Jesus, depending on God, are all ways that we express love
Mm-hmm.
for God and for others. That was the kind of the point. And I think it's the point Jesus was making in this section. Um, Interesting. So like when a few minutes ago, when we were talking about this, that's a pretty good example of Luke organizing material,
Mm-hmm.
because this section opened with someone coming to Jesus saying, Jesus, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And so the next few sections sort of expounded on, well, what does loving God and neighbor look
Mm-hmm.
like? So the parable of the Good Samaritan, the story of Mary and Martha, and then this really fascinating parable of someone who was banging on his neighbor's door in the middle of the night. So I think those sections pretty clearly unfold what this section opened with, which was love the Lord, love God, and love neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so in this grid, sort of each of those pieces had three components to it. So serving others means you have to see the need, feel compassion in response, and then move toward the need. So see it, feel it, and respond to it
Mm-hmm.
is sort of a path of what it takes to serve others. Um, Learning from Jesus, we're learning from the example of this woman, Mary, who sat at Jesus' feet, listened to what he said, and Jesus said that was the right choice. So sitting, listening, and making a choice to learn from Jesus is a way of showing love for God, showing love for Jesus. The Good Samaritan, seeing and responding to needs is a way to show love for others. And then this last one, depending. So this one was the most obvious pathway. Jesus said, ask, seek, knock.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the point was, God wants us to depend on him and to come to him even when we think it's
Mm-hmm.
in, we think we might be bothering God with
Yeah.
something trite. And the point was like, no, bother God with what you need.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, it's not a very well-known parable.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got to talking about that one in our community group. And most of us would probably have said, of these three, we're least inclined to want to depend on others, and honestly, even to depend on God. Like we want to be self-reliant, we want to be independent,
Yeah.
all those things. And
Which I think we talked about that on the podcast. Like
yeah,
for men, that one typically is
yeah,
the most difficult.
yeah,
So yeah, that's it. It's cool that you have your own test group that backs up what we
yeah.
what we said.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But the thing in that conversation at the community group that night, something hit me that I wish I would have thought of,
Mhm.
before I preached the sermon, even because it's on this idea of depending on God. And it made me think of the church where I previously served, the senior lead pastor there, primary preacher there, had this refrain all the time where he was saying, one of the things everybody needs in their life is a 2 a.m. friend,
Mm.
meaning it's the kind of friend that if something goes wrong in the middle of the night and you got an emergency situation, that's the first number you call. That's your 2
Mhm.
a.m. friend. Life breaks down at 2 a.m. Call me. I'm your 2 a.m. friend. He's like, everybody needs that kind of friend in their life. And one of the points that he would make around that was it's the kind of friend that not only, would want you to call them if something went wrong in the middle of the night,
Mhm.
but if something had gone wrong and you didn't call them and they found out about it later, would be upset
Mm.
and say,
Mhm.
why didn't you call me?
Mhm.
Like, I thought we were friends,
Mhm.
and you had this crisis in your life. That kind of hurts that you didn't reach out to me.
Mhm.
And that lands with us, right? You're like, oh, yeah, I could see that. And it occurred to me in the context of this parable that it's an expression of love to depend on somebody.
Mhm.
Like, why would somebody be hurt that they didn't get reached out to? It's because I thought you loved me
Mhm.
enough to depend on me in your hour of need.
Yeah.
But the fact that you went somewhere else, that kind of hurts. Like,
Yeah.
maybe we're not
Or
as
just went through it on your own. That hurts
yeah.
me. Yeah.
So that convinced me even more that
Mhm.
this parable is about loving God. We express a love for God when we depend on him,
Mhm.
and we express a love for others when we depend on them. I
Mhm.
mean, it's a sign of respect, it's a sign of deference, it's a sign of like, I trust you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big sign of trust
Yeah.
and vulnerability to come to someone in our hour of need.
Yeah.
Which, just on the surface, we don't think of that as like acts of love, but I actually think it's a pretty profound act of love to be vulnerable and dependent toward others and toward God.
Mhm.
So that's what I mean. As these weeks have gone by, and I reflect on the call to love, um, that one I think it sticks with me the most because it's the most counterintuitive. It's something I think I learned, a new thing I learned from this passage. Um, it just kind of landed on me in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think yeah. I love that picture of just like depending is an act of love and
Hmm.
depending on others is an act of love. And yeah, it just shows like the importance I think too of prayer. Like
Hmm.
I think the reason Jesus tells his followers to pray is this core theme of like depending.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like we just got to keep bothering God.
Yeah.
Because he loves us and
Yeah.
he cares for us and
Yeah. That's right.
he wants to be involved in yeah, I as you were talking,
Yeah.
I thought of a situation I've had where
Yeah.
like I found out a friend went through like this crazy difficult thing and I never knew about it
Yeah.
until it came up months later.
Yeah.
I was like, "Bro, like why didn't you talk to any of
Yeah.
us?" So yeah, I mean, I get that.
Yeah.
That resonates.
Yeah. Absolutely. And in the passage, I think another gem that shows up in it is the idea of shame, because what Jesus says in it is pray, depend on God with shameless audacity.
Mm,
Like those are some colorful words that Jesus used. Or to be specific, the
mhm.
Aramaic that he used, translated into Greek, translated into English, the
Yeah.
equivalent word for us in English is shameless audacity. And so reflecting, it's like, why wouldn't we? Why don't we depend on others? Why don't we depend on God? It's because of shame.
Shame.
Like,
Mhm,
oh, I'm too embarrassed
mhm,
to let people know my need, or if it's a mistake that it's my fault. I did something stupid, so I'm ashamed of what I did, and so I'm not going to let anybody know. Like,
mhm,
now I'm in this situation. I'm desperate for help, but because I'm too ashamed
mhm,
to admit why I'm here, or I'm just too embarrassed by it, then I won't let anybody know my need.
mhm,
And Jesus is saying, don't let your shame, your embarrassment, the fact that you feel bad about reaching out, stop you from reaching out.
mhm.
So it's like, depend on God and don't feel bad about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you were talking too, I thought about my relationship with my parents now. Like, I'm out of the house, I'm an adult, I'm
Yeah.
married, I have my own family. But I would imagine, like, when I call my dad and ask him
Mhm.
to help me with something, I know my dad,
Mhm.
that probably makes his day. I don't think he's like, "Oh, here we go. I gotta go help."
Yeah.
I think he's
Yeah.
he's happy. Well, I may be speaking for him. Maybe
Yeah.
that's not true, but that's my that's my gut.
Tucker's dad, is that true?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but I think that's how God
Yeah.
is. Like,
Yeah.
it like makes his day when we come to
Yeah.
depend on him for things.
So it's an act of love.
Yeah.
Part of the call to love.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So would you say that's the one that comes least naturally to you?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Then which of the 3 would you say comes most naturally?
Yeah. I think probably depends on the situation. If it's a need that I see, so I'm probably not as consistent, but in some cases serving others, like if it's the kind of serving that I guess resonates with me,
Mhm.
then that comes very naturally to me. But there are other areas of service that I need to grow in,
Mhm.
and serve in other ways. So
Mm,
probably depends on the kind of the kind of
mhm.
service. Um, but probably the most natural would be the learning from Jesus and just the
Mhm.
reading and learning, study. It's
Mhm.
probably why I do what I do. You
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
I went to seminary because I just love the idea of studying the Bible and learning theology and all of those things, which sort of that's a lot of head knowledge, right? And that's not where it should stop.
Mhm.
It needs to make its way down to the heart. So taking that knowledge and learning and meditating on it, reflecting on it, finding silence and solitude and ways to reflect, that's probably where,
Mhm.
yeah, that's going to be the most natural for me of the three.
Yeah.
So I would say learning would be the most natural, serving would be next,
Mhm.
and then last would be learning to depend on God and others.
Yeah. Which not to say not least is in the sense of like, I wouldn't say you're terrible at depending, but
Sure, but yeah,
yeah, I think we all have, varying
yeah,
degrees of each of these.
yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, I would probably rank learning, and I think I would go depending too and then serving.
Okay.
Um, but that's just because of what the Lord's done in my life
Mhm.
over the past couple years. Yeah, I've just come to see him work a lot in my depending, and so
Mhm.
it makes me wanna do it more.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's good.
so it comes a little more naturally now than it used to,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
good.
And it's not because you don't ever wanna serve anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
'Cause I've seen you serve. I know you're a servant.
yeah. Right.
So the call to love.
So call to love. And then next we had the call to choose. And this one was when we had an interesting conversation about spiritual warfare on the podcast.
Yeah.
Um, but I I cannot tell you how many times I've used the parable of the stronger man
Yeah.
in conversations with people
Really?
who are like going through things. It's incredibly practical,
Is
I
there
feel
one
like.
of those that you could share on the podcast? Or are they too private?
Uh, Probably not. Yeah,
Okay.
probably should keep it private. But,
No names or anything.
I can
Yeah.
just, in generality, just the concept of, like, the idea of, okay, there was a strong man who had this house, and there was an evil spirit in it,
Yeah.
and then the stronger man comes, takes away the strong man, takes away the evil spirit, and the
Yeah.
house is empty,
Yeah.
and it never gets put nothing else gets put back in it,
Yeah.
and 7 more spirits more evil than the first come and fill the house.
Yeah.
And so just the principle of it's one thing to like in the Torah, God will tell them in the law, like purge the evil from
Yeah.
among you. It's one thing to do that, but if you don't replace it with anything good,
Yeah.
if you don't fill it with anything um that's the fruits of the spirit, love, joy, peace,
Yeah.
patience, kind, like if you don't try to fill it with those things,
Mhm.
you're you're just opening yourself up for future attacks.
Yeah.
And I've seen that over and over again in my own journey with following Jesus, where sins I struggled with, I wanted so badly to purge the evil from among me,
Mhm.
but I didn't take that next step of replacing it with good
Yeah.
things. And that's like
Yeah.
a theory in sociology, like replacement theory. If you're trying to stop one habit, you need to replace it with something
Yeah.
else, or else you're
Something's
going to
gonna fill that
easily,
void.
yeah,
Y
something's going to fill that void. So yeah, I've just used that in conversations with people as a helpful way to just kind of bring that to light.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's super practical. We need to fill the void with something good, not just the absence of something bad,
Mm-hmm.
because we're gonna do something. And that's a wild picture that Jesus painted
Mm-hmm.
of, yeah, you had one evil spirit. Now you got 7 that are worse than the one you had.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a sobering. It's one of the one thing I've learned through this this series in a new way is just how bold Jesus is
Mm.
and some of these teachings that he brings. And we mentioned a couple times on the podcast, he uses hyperbole to get our attention. But that doesn't mean these things are not real. I mean, it's exaggerated to make a point. Like, hey,
Yeah.
fill that void with something good, and you got to choose. So the call to
Yeah.
choose. The other stark one on that week was, if you're not with me, you're against me.
Mm-hmm.
So what's it going to be? And to be with me is to help gather people in
Yep.
to my kingdom, to go and bring peace, go and show love. Or you're either gathering, or if you're not doing those things, if you're passive and you're not not evil, but just neutral, he's saying there is no neutral.
Mm.
Neutral is scattering. And the thing that hit me that week was, I don't know if I told the story in the podcast, but I think I did in the sermon of, somebody that works at a restaurant, but never eats at the restaurant,
Yeah, that's bad sign.
or works at a
Mhm.
bank, but doesn't have their money at the bank
Mm-hmm.
because they know too much.
Yeah, they
I
know
mean,
the behind the scenes.
does that draw you in to eat at that restaurant or bank at
Mhm.
that bank? Nope. It kind of pushes you away. Like,
Yeah.
that's easy for us to see. And so to sort of name the name of Jesus and go, yeah, I believe, but
Mhm.
I'm not filling my life with any of these. I'm not choosing any of these good things. I just don't want the bad things. Is a scattering. It doesn't speak to the value, the worth of Jesus.
Yeah.
So we got to choose.
Yeah, yeah, and another cool story from that week was that Sunday, Evan in student ministry taught on a different passage that had the same principle,
Oh, really?
and then you preached on this, and then that Sunday night at youth. So my wife volunteers in the student ministry, so I'm
Mhm.
usually there, even though
You're not technically
yeah, I'm not
volunteering.
technically
You're
volunteering, but I
sort
usually
of a
am just
bandwagon
like
volunteer.
yeah, hanging out up there, and Evan talked about the same thing again, and he needed me to fill in for one of the small groups. And I just pointed that out to the high school guys. I was like, "Look, you guys have consistently heard the same message 3 times today, and, like, Evan and Anson didn't talk about
Yeah.
this.
Nope. No
So,
collusion.
I think it's very clear the Lord wants you to hear this message." And I
Mhm.
shared with them a lyric, from a song I love that's always stuck with me, and, it's from the Avett Brothers, who are actually from my hometown,
Okay.
so shout out to the Avett Brothers. Um but they have a lyric that says, "1 foot in and 1 foot back, but it don't pay to live like that."
Hmm.
And that has always
Yeah.
stuck with me, and it plays out in anything in life. If you're
Yeah.
not fully committed or fully bought in, it's not gonna pay off in the long run,
Mhm.
and, it's no different with Jesus. So, yeah, it was cool. God was clearly trying to communicate a message to our
Yeah.
church, and he did.
Go, love, choose.
So since we talked about spiritual warfare, do you have any, like, crazy spiritual stories up your sleeve?
Oh, man. I got a wild one. I don't know if it's spiritual. There's probably a way in which this was spiritual warfare, but not in the dramatic way that, that we might think.
Mhm.
Um, so I'll try to make it short because this could be a long one. Um, we used to live in Clearwater, Florida, served in
Mhm.
the first church that we served in after seminary was in Clearwater, Florida. So when we were leaving Clearwater, we were moving up to Chicago. We had been renting the house that we lived in. We were young, renting this house in Clearwater, and the move out date was coming, and had our pods and all the things. Everything was moved out, and the day came where we were going to be moving out, and the next renters were moving in,
Mhm.
and everything was done. Pods were packed. They came and hauled them away. The cars were all loaded, ready to go. But we had this cat, an indoor outdoor cat that, usually he would go out at night and then come back in the day or whatever. Well, as we were packing things up in the days leading up to the time to leave, he wasn't coming back. So for 3-4 days, we were like, well, I hope the cat comes back soon. And he would, once in a while, he'd be gone for 2-3 days and then show up again. But this was rare. And to the point where like everything was done and Dina and I were sitting on the floor in the middle of an empty living room while the next renters were starting to move in, and they were funny. I mean, they were Christians, but of a very different stripe than we are, but very much into the sort of the more charismatic expressions of the Spirit. Big into spiritual warfare, big into like sort of prayers of deliverance and things like that, which I mean, I think there's a place for all those things. But this was very strong in their tradition, in their church. So this woman, and she was real flamboyant. I mean, she was a character. And so not saying everybody is a character.
Yeah.
So I'm not painting any broad brushes. I'm just saying this woman was a character, and this was the faith tradition that she was a part of.
Yeah.
And
those two things can both it can be separate.
Not everybody's that way. Not everybody's that way. I just want to be careful, right?
Yeah.
But very different than our sort of, read the Bible, apply the verse. It's all very, tidy and all those things. So she's asking us like, what's up? And so we told her the story about the cat, and she's like, oh, well, I'll just pray for the cat and it'll come home. And we were like,
all right,
okay. I mean, sure you will. And she was like, no, like that's what I do. I have the gift of prayer, and God just does stuff when I pray. And I mean, just as confident as she could be. And, and we're just sort of like trying not to chuckle. And we're like, okay. And she breaks out praying for this cat to come home. And she's quoting verses all left and right. And she kept saying, suddenly, like suddenly, bring this cat home suddenly. And, and we're kind of, bowing our heads and closing our eyes and kind of looking at each other out of one eye and like, what is happening right now? And she was declaring it. And so she got done. I kid you not, 30 seconds later, that cat, we had a privacy fence in the back. You could see it through the porch, like glass door. Cat hops up on the privacy fence, walks up onto the porch, sits in front of the glass door, like stares right at us like, okay, ready to go.
Wow. Interesting.
So
maybe that's the like passcode for God. You got to say suddenly.
She was quoting verses, and I was like, a seminary trained student, all these things. I'm like, that is not what that verse means. But
she was depending on God.
1,000%. She was. And, in her tradition, and I mean, her conviction was like, she deals in spiritual warfare. So she's like entering into a spiritual dimension of, something that's keeping us from moving on to this next phase of our life. And she's praying against it and wants us to have the freedom to move on. And if it meant that cat showing up, she's praying for that cat to suddenly show up. Like there was so much about it that, I mean, it's still like touches me today. It's like, I could point to things that were technically not consistent with what the Bible says, all the things. But what I do know is she prayed and that cat came home, and it was like, that was wild.
Yeah. She prayed with, what was the phrase you used? Shameless audacity?
She prayed with shameless audacity. She sure did.
Look, we're connecting all the dots. This is good.
Oh, man. So, that was wild.
Yeah. That sounds wild.
It's my cat story.
That's an interesting way to leave a place.
and when it was done too, like we were just like flabbergasted, like just like, whoa, can you believe it?
Yeah.
The cat. Like we're just like, she was like, yeah, you're welcome.
Easy.
Like, I mean, just unfazed.
I do this all day.
100%.
That's awesome.
But that's what she said at the beginning.
Yeah.
She did it. And when it was done, she's like, all right.
Yep.
Hope you have a good trip.
Anything else?
That's just it was seriously that matter of fact. That's my closest brush with something that I'm like, that was different than anything I've ever seen.
Wow. Yeah, that would be quite the experience.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I don't know how to
that's
go on to the
that's
next
the
thing
call
from
to
that.
choose, and then we had the call to watch.
Yeah.
So this is where we took a moment on the podcast to focus specifically on one of the things. It was the call to watch out for hypocrisy, greed, worry, and complacency. And
Yeah.
so we kind of already unpacked the greed
Greed part. Yeah,
aspect
that's
a
right.
lot.
That's right.
But you touched on the other three in the sermon. So
Yeah.
is there any you've reflected on more after the fact?
So the hypocrisy one, I mean, this is the one that was kind of the lead teaching in this section, I think has shown up in a few different things in subsequent weeks, where what he's getting at is if you're more concerned with what other people think about you than with what God thinks about you, then the pull to hypocrisy is going to be strong,
Mm-hmm.
meaning you're going to represent yourself as something you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether that means, when you show up at church, you act all pious and Christian and you use the language and you say all the right words and do all the right things, but Monday through Friday, you're just a jerk at work and, you're kind of a two-face, like whether it's that sort of hypocrisy or the opposite, which is you're a follower of Jesus and this is what you believe in. But when you go to school or you go to work and the people around you don't believe, and really who you are is a sincere Christian believer. But when you get around people who don't agree, you deny it.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus actually warns in both directions in this warning against hypocrisy. But the root of it is caring about what other people think, whether you want the religious people to approve of you or whether you want the non-religious people to approve of you. Hypocrisy is hypocrisy. And it's a danger for anybody who's a follower of Jesus and something to watch out for.
Yeah.
Because it speaks to, like I said, who we care most about, their opinion of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets into so many other areas as well, that if we're too caught up in what other people perceive and it trumps what God thinks of us, well, that's going to be trouble, every time. So that was hypocrisy. We talked about greed, worry. The contrast I made between greed and worry, I'm trying to remember exactly how I phrased it, but greed is like a self-absorbed obsession with more.
Mm-hmm.
Worry is a self-reliant obsession with not having enough.
Mm-hmm.
And both can play on us however much we have.
Mm-hmm.
And so worry is this constant fixation on, I'm not going to have enough. I'm not going to have enough. I don't have enough. I'm not going to have, which is sort of the other side of the coin to greed. And he puts them right next to each other in this set of warnings. Watch out for hypocrisy. Watch out for greed. Watch out for worry. And then watch out for complacency of losing sight of the fact that Jesus is going to return.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another of the teachings throughout the New Testament, that when Jesus ascended from earth back up into heaven, he said, I'm going to come again, and no one knows the day or the hour. Only the Father knows. Even Jesus doesn't know, but he's coming back, and we're supposed to live with a sense of urgency, anticipation that Jesus is going to return.
Mm-hmm.
But the temptation for everybody in every age is toward complacency.
Mm-hmm.
And we see this warned in other places in the New Testament as well, that you go, oh, well, it hadn't happened yet. It's not really going to come. And so we don't think of it as any kind of an urgency. It's like, when it's exam day, there's urgency to cram for the exam. But if the exam's a month away and it's been pushed off 3 or 4 times already, well, I'm not living like I'm ever going to have to take that exam. So I don't do the things that are going to be needed. And so that's the temptation for all of us, I think. So be aware is what Jesus is saying. Watch out for these things because they're going to work. They can undo all of these positive calls that he has for us. So I think there were 4 pretty clearly articulated warnings in that section. And that was an easy one to actually see what Luke was doing. That's one where you can, if you open up your Bible
Yeah.
and you have little headings or whatever that the editors of the translations have put in. I think most of them say warnings from Jesus,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
the language in the teaching is watch for,
Mhm.
be on the alert for. So that wasn't actually in terms of the what we would call exegesis or interpreting this section. That was a really straightforward one, pretty easy
Yeah.
to see what's happening in Luke.
Yeah. Yeah, as you were talking about hypocrisy, my mind started going to, like, yes, we wanna care more about what God thinks about us than what other people think about us, but I also feel like that can get to an unhealthy
Mhm,
place. So, like, with greed, we talked about how it's kinda like a pendulum where,
mhm,
like, on this side you have greed, but if you wanna swing away from greed, try being generous.
mhm,
And I think with hypocrisy, uh, I'm wondering if the other side of that pendulum is humility.
mhm.
'Cause I think it's silly, but have you seen the clip of this, like, kid preacher going around that's gotten some buzz?
No.
He's like, I don't even know if he's 10 yet,
Okay.
and he's, like, a Southern boy, got his, vest and tie, and
Uh-huh.
he's up at the
He's
podium
preaching.
just and he's preaching. He's
Okay.
definitely watched some Southern preacher
Yeah.
preach
That
multiple
he's
times and is preaching that way,
yeah.
and, I just thought to myself watching it, he's up there like, "My my daddy didn't call me to it, my mama didn't call me to it, God called me to it, and nobody's gonna tell me,
Yeah.
how to preach," and
Yeah.
it's like, "Okay, yes,
Yeah.
I hear you, and that is so cute." But we
Yeah.
do need people in our lives who, you know, speak into, like, we can't just be
Yeah.
out here like, "Oh, well, I only listen to God. I don't listen
Yeah.
to accountability or feedback from other
Yeah.
people," because I think that's pride,
Yeah.
and we don't wanna do that either.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think hypocrisy even comes with its own ditches to watch out for,
Yeah.
where you can get into more trouble.
Yeah. I think that I'm so glad you pointed that out. I 100% agree because you don't wanna
Yeah.
get into this piece of like, all I care about is what God thinks.
Mhm.
And yeah, that does I mean, I can't say it any better than you did. I think that's just pride.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think I would venture to guess that when we do see, like, moral failings of pastors, that's probably a place that they've gotten to,
Mm.
where they don't have people that can speak into their life
Mm.
and say, "Hey, we're noticing this. It's a
Mhm.
little concerning. Can we have a conversation
Yeah.
about it?" And they probably just brush that off in their
Mhm.
pride and just say, "Well, I only care what God thinks,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna keep on doing
Yeah.
what I'm doing." Um, so yeah, I just felt like it was a good time to kinda point that out.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I wonder if one of the distinctions in terms of our relationship to people and how much we care about what they think,
Mhm.
I think hypocrisy comes when we're afraid of what other people think. Like there's a
Yes.
fear
Yeah.
of
Mhm.
their assessment of us.
Mhm.
And so we feel like we have to protect ourselves by putting on a false
Mhm.
front. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't value
Mhm.
what people see in us.
Mhm.
So I think being afraid of what people think of us is one thing. Valuing what people see in us is a very positive thing
Mhm.
and a critical
Yeah.
thing
Mhm.
that actually is not too far away from valuing what God sees in us because very often we're going to hear from God through other people.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think we could spend some time on that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of taking that apart
Yeah,
because you're
yeah,
right.
yeah.
It's more nuanced and um there are layers to
Mhm.
it than just what we're not saying. And we kind of got at that before. Like one thing we're not saying is don't care about what
Yeah.
anybody thinks. Like that
Mhm.
would be an overstatement.
Yeah.
That's not what I mean when I say,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah. And I'm not even saying that's
yeah,
what that kid meant by that, but
yeah,
that was just a thought
yeah,
that popped
yeah.
in my
I think it's
head, and I
it's a
think
good example.
it's for leaders specifically, I
Yeah,
feel like that can be an easy trap to fall into.
yeah.
Um, so yeah. But what of those 4 do you think us as a society and culture are more prone to?
Well, worry comes to mind sort of at the front. I
Mhm,
mean, in my own job, I've talked about my own journey with anxiety, which is sort of a clinical experience of worry, very kind of
mhm,
connected. And in the Bible, a lot of times when he's talking about worry, they'll use the term anxious. Um, and I think, yeah, that it's a phobia in our society, probably for a few different reasons. You know, we think we don't have enough. We worry so much when maybe what we're what we're really worried about is I'm not going to be able to have a certain standard of living
mm,
that I want.
mhm,
And we, through social media, even just media in general, TV, movies, we have exposure to lifestyles that are better than our own
mhm,
all the time.
mhm.
And so very hard to find contentment.
Yes.
Um, very hard to resist this pull to go, well, what I have isn't enough. I can't be happy. I can't have a fulfilled life. I can't make it on what I'm doing. So I think we create reasons to
Mhm,
worry. In addition to like actual, need that's in the world. And
mhm,
there's a lot in our world where, we legitimately, don't have enough.
mhm,
And so yeah, I mean, and whether it's a clinical condition or a physical reality, I think worry has a lot of us in its grip.
I would agree completely, and the statistics back that up.
Yeah.
I mean, anxiety and depression rates are just
Yeah.
skyrocketing, and I do think it's because the access we have to see how much other people
Mhm.
have and this, like, discontentment. Um, but I saw a video that struck me too, where this guy named, Arthur Brooks, he
Oh,
he
yeah.
he
I know Arthur
teaches,
Brooks. I don't know him, but I know
yeah.
his stuff.
He teaches a class called The Science of Happiness
Yeah.
at Harvard,
Uh-huh.
and I was like,
Uh-huh.
"I want to take that class." Like, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Um, but he talks about how we've lost the ability as a culture to be bored,
Mm.
and we just entertain ourselves to death, distract ourselves to death. Any moment of silence we have, we're
Mhm.
trying to fill it with something, whether it's a podcast or our phones or social
Mhm.
media or music. And he said the reason anxiety and depression rates are skyrocketing is because when you're bored is when you ask the biggest questions in life. It's when you
Mhm.
ask, what is my purpose?
Mhm.
What meaning do I have in life? Why am I here on this earth?
Mhm.
And when you don't allow yourself to be bored, you never explore or wrestle through those questions. And a lack of meaning and purpose is one of the largest contributors to
Hmm.
anxiety and worry.
Hmm.
Um, and depression.
Yeah.
And so I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
And part of the good news of the gospel is Jesus comes along
Yeah.
and says, "Hey, there's a different way of
Yeah.
life. And if you adopt some of these practices,
Yeah.
you can find life
Yeah.
and have it to the full."
Yeah.
And um, so yeah, that's not really connected to worry in particular, but I just thought it was an
Yeah.
interesting antidote for our
Yeah.
culture.
Well, I think one of your favorite topics is also connected to worry, and that's a lack of community.
Mhm.
Because you just think about in the West, in the United
Mhm.
States, we're such an individualist culture,
Mhm.
and that's a stress. So stress created to worry. What is one of the things that we stress out about, that we worry about providing for ourselves on our own?
Mhm.
That in more communal cultures, there would be a more networked family
Mhm.
who helps support one another.
Yep.
And then if it's not a blood relative, just in communal cultures, you have people that you're back to dependence
Yeah.
that you're able to depend on, and you're holding each other up. Our culture, I think, is set up for
Mhm.
chronic worry
Mhm.
because by and large, we're all on our own. Like we pride
Mhm.
ourselves in being on our own and not having to depend on anybody else.
Yeah.
Well, that creates a lot of additional pressure, additional stress, additional worry
Mhm.
that we carry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the passage in I think it's Ecclesiastes, I've heard it read at weddings before, but the cord of 3 strands isn't
Yeah.
easily broken, and that's kind of the point made is
Mhm.
if it's just one strand by itself, that's only
Snap it.
gonna hold up.
Y
It's only
I'm
gonna
about to
hold for
snap!
so long. 3 chords, banded together are a lot stronger. So the
Yeah.
more you have, yeah, community and relationships, and the more you can talk through the real stuff of life that you're
Mhm.
experiencing and going through with other people, the better off you're gonna be.
Yeah. So if you feel like you're gonna snap, find some other strands to
There you
weave
go.
together with.
Yep. Almost like a brace. You need a brace.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your leg doesn't snap. All right. Let's move on to the call to think. This
Yeah.
is fresh on our
Yeah, getting
brains because
closer to,
yeah,
recent,
yeah,
yeah.
because this is, pretty recent.
Go, love, choose, watch,
Watch,
think.
think. Yeah. So we talked a lot about Jesus' call to think for yourself. And my biggest takeaway from this one was it was almost Jesus calling us to cultivate wisdom,
Mm.
not necessarily to cultivate or to gain knowledge,
Mhm.
but to cultivate wisdom.
Yeah.
And I've been reading through the Torah since the beginning of the year, and along with that, took the Bible Project class on Exodus, and that's one of the things the professor pointed out about the law is it wasn't necessarily given as like this legislative
Mhm.
thing given to them. Instead, it was supposed to be like, here's these principles on which you can build wisdom of how to live in the land you're about to go to.
Mhm.
And so they're supposed to derive wisdom from it because it doesn't answer every situation
Right.
that they're going to encounter,
Yep.
but it's building up in them a way to think about how they go about making decisions and actions in their day to day lives so that they can, when other things come up, they have wisdom from what they saw here
Yeah.
to be able to apply it to other scenarios. Um, and I just thought that was a really helpful way to just think about like, as a society, how do we cultivate wisdom? Like,
Mhm.
what do we have that's similar to what we see in the
Mhm.
scriptures to cultivate wisdom? I still think scriptures are the best place
Mhm.
to go for that. Um, yeah, I was just started thinking like, well, what else? What are the other best ways we have that kind of teach us how to think about
Yeah.
the way we live, not necessarily tell us how to
Yeah.
live?
How to think, not what to think,
Exactly. Yeah.
is a big deal. And Jesus did a lot of wisdom teaching for
Hmm.
sure. So I think that's true. Yeah. And it fits with kind of the big picture of what he's doing in this section of his life on earth,
Hmm.
this section of the Gospels, training his disciples for the time when he wasn't going to be there standing beside them,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
modeling it for them, teaching them, correcting them, instructing them. They were going to need to learn to think for themselves.
Hmm.
And how to think, you're right, is going to be a whole lot more applicable, useful, needed
Hmm.
than a directory of what to think in every situation. That's just not practical. So,
Yeah. And it's we actually so I met with last night was Tuesday, so I met with my group of guys,
yeah.
and this is one of the things we were talking about, and um, we were talking. I was reflecting on when I worked in the sales role I worked in for a while,
Mhm.
and then another buddy of mine owns his own foundation repair company
Mhm.
with another guy who's in the group, so they kind of
Mhm.
run it together, and I'm trying not to say this in a way that comes across like prideful or puffed up, but I was one of the youngest guys in the office I was in,
Mhm.
and yet felt like the people around me who were probably 30 years older, 30 to 40 years older, were just lacking wisdom that I had
Hmm.
in like emotional intelligence, like just maturity in certain situations. And I'm not trying to say like
Yeah.
I got it all figured out, but I think one of the biggest differences was like a lot of these people I was working with were not Christians.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know what they're consuming that's teaching them how to think.
Yeah.
But for me, the bulk of what I'm consuming to help me process life and to gain wisdom
Mhm.
is spending time in relationship with Jesus, being a part
Yeah.
of a church community, reading the scriptures, listening, always trying to be learning and
Yeah.
listening to like podcasts and reading books. Um, I bring that up not to put myself on
Yeah.
a pedestal, but my friend said they're in their industry is the same exact way. Like, he's having to mediate these arguments between like 50-year-old grown
Yeah.
men. And it's like,
Silly
how
stuff.
about you just talk to each other? And then
Yeah.
it solves everything. So I think that pursuit of wisdom, it doesn't matter how old you are.
Yeah.
It's the source
Yeah.
of where you're getting it from and what's teaching you how to think that
I
matters.
think it's a great point. And I think it's an encouraging thing. So for somebody who's considering Christianity,
Mhm.
I think that's one of I think your example is a very practical one to say, if one of the reasons that someone is hesitant to make a commitment to Christ as a Christian,
Mhm.
to be a follower of Jesus, is I could never do that. It's too much for me. I don't understand.
Mhm.
I think that can be a legitimate fear of somebody to look at all these Christians. They seem to know a language that I don't know,
Mhm.
but you pick up wisdom by doing all those things that you just talked about,
Mhm.
starting to even just beginning to read the Bible. And you may not understand all of it, but you're going to pick up a lot of it
Mhm.
showing up at church.
Mhm.
One of the things that hit me years ago is just the practical value of showing up at church every week.
Yeah.
If you did nothing else,
Mhm.
and that was a fixed part of your rhythm of life, that would make a tremendous difference in the
Absolutely.
trajectory of your
Yeah.
life. Now, there's more where that came from, and we're always encouraging people to find their people and find their
Mhm.
place and dig in deeper because there's a lot more there. But even if all you did was get around
Mhm.
some people who have picked up wisdom from Jesus along the way, have learned how to think,
Mhm.
and they're thinking for themselves, that's contagious, and
Mhm.
you do pick it up, and probably faster than
Yeah.
we realize.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the things that separates a church community from any other like neighborhood social club is
Mhm,
it's a community of learning.
mhm.
Like that's one of the pillars of
Yeah,
what we're called to do as followers
mhm.
of Jesus is to always be
Yeah,
learning.
yeah,
And that includes like learning how to live.
yeah,
And yeah, it's an environment where you can with other people try and glean wisdom. And that's we were talking about that last night too. Like, when we meet as a group, really what we're trying to do, and you quoted this in one of these sermons, I don't remember which one, but in Deuteronomy 4, I think it is, where
mhm.
Moses says, I've set before you
Yeah.
life and death. I think it was the call to choose.
Choose. Now choose
Yeah.
life.
Now choose life. And that hit me last night when we were
Yeah,
talking. I was like, really what we're doing when we meet every week and we're talking about what's going on in our life is
yeah,
there's a choice before us and we're trying to choose life. And so we're having a
yeah,
conversation about how can we choose life more than we choose death,
yeah.
about what's actually going on in our lives.
Mhm,
And I think that's a helpful way to think about what a church community is supposed to do.
mhm.
It's
Yeah.
like, let's help each other choose life more than we choose death.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
sounds like a good thing.
That I think it is. We have each other to help. We have the teachings
Yeah.
of Jesus and the Bible to
Mhm.
help. The other great thing is we have the Holy Spirit. Like
Mhm.
when you become a follower of Jesus, we have this gift
Yeah.
of his spirit within us, and it's a mysterious, the Bible
Yeah.
calls it a mystery. It's a spiritual reality that we're not all on our own. It's not just, how smart we are or capable
Mhm.
we are or the people that we're around. God himself is teaching us and training us and forming us in how to think as well,
Mhm.
inwardly, internally.
Mhm.
So you got the Holy Spirit of putting wind in those sails
Mhm.
as we learn these things, and yeah, it's life transforming.
Yeah.
And we learn how to think and how to navigate situations that we've never seen before,
Mhm.
how to have discernment,
Mhm.
to yeah, to do life,
Mhm.
how to choose life.
Yeah.
And it's not always because we've seen it before, we've gained experience, even in uncharted territory, through the power of the Holy Spirit, the formative work in our hearts and minds. There's power there.
Yeah, and another benefit of the Holy Spirit is it gives us discernment to even glean wisdom from worldly resources that aren't Christian.
Yeah.
It me and you talk about all truth is God's truth.
Yeah.
So if we can learn something from another source that's secular, that's
Yeah.
still valuable because
Oh, yeah.
and the Spirit is the one that can help you
Yeah.
discern what you should take from a source and
Right.
what, is maybe
Yeah.
best to
Yeah.
leave behind. The whole eat the meat, spit out the bones
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's enough on call to think.
We've talked a
Um,
lot about how to think in these last
yeah.
couple episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. So last but not least, the call to plan.
So far,
And
last. There's one more after
oh
this.
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, there
Yeah.
is one more. But this past week
Yeah.
was
That's
the
right.
call to
That's
plan.
right.
And I think I've already heard from so many people that this Sunday sermon in particular was really helpful for them.
Oh, good.
Um, because it's just a thing we often forget that if you don't actually make a plan and put things on your calendar and schedule something,
Yeah.
odds are you're not going to do it.
Right.
It's a starting point to have a desire to do something, but you got to put legs on it and you got to make a plan.
Yeah.
So, yeah, kind of unpack a little bit
Yeah.
from this
Yeah.
past week.
So Jesus, I mean, yet again with some parables that aren't like A-list, everybody knows them parables. Good Samaritan. Everybody, even if you don't know anything about the Bible or Jesus, you've heard of the Good Samaritan.
Mhm.
So, but a lot of those parables don't have that level of prominence. And the key parable in this section that Jesus teaches is he tells this story of a landowner building a tower,
Mhm.
like a watchtower, and you need to sit down and count the cost of what it's going to take to finish that project before you start.
Mhm.
Because in Jesus' words, how embarrassing to not be able to finish. And now you got this half-finished tower and everybody ridicules you
Mhm.
because it's a very visible thing on your property and you're advertising to everybody, yeah, I didn't really plan ahead very well.
Mhm.
And so Jesus is just saying, he's connecting it to discipleship and following him. And he says, count the cost
Mhm.
because there is a cost in your life to following me. And before you start down that path, consider what it's going to take to finish. And so we got to tease that out a little bit. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people start and don't finish.
Mhm.
It's a very common story of someone starting down a path of, yeah, I believe in Jesus, I have faith, whether it's as a child and then as an
Mhm.
adult they go a different direction, or even within adulthood to start but then wander off and just go a different path. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that,
Mhm.
but one of them, drawing off of this teaching, is just not really understanding on the front end what this means for your life.
Mhm.
Maybe misunderstandings, misconceptions. If I follow Jesus, well, he's going to make everything better, and I'm going to make more money,
Mhm.
and I'm not going to have so many problems. I'm going to be a nicer person. This is what I quoted in the sermon from Pete Scazzaro. That's more of an Americanized Jesus.
Yeah.
If
Mhm.
we come to Jesus, have faith because we think he's going to, fulfill the American dream for us,
Yeah.
well, that's miscounting the cost.
Mhm.
And if that's what we're thinking that we're getting into, we're probably not going to stick with it
Mhm.
because we're probably going to be disappointed and go, well, Jesus isn't doing any of the things that I thought Jesus was going to do.
Mhm.
I'm not rich. I'm not miraculously healthy. I don't have,
Mhm.
a great new spouse. Fill in the blank.
Yeah.
I'm not healed of my sickness. But Jesus didn't promise us any of those things.
Mhm.
He promised us eternal life. He promised us a peace that
Mhm.
doesn't make sense when we're going through hard things in life. He promised his presence and
Yeah.
his love and connection,
Mhm.
healing, connection, purpose
Mhm.
in the midst of the difficulties of life. But nowhere did he promise that those difficulties would go away. So I think this is a very real thing that happens in our world, is that there's a lot of people who don't know the cost, fail to plan according to what the Bible actually says, according to what
Mhm.
Jesus actually says. And so what do you do? Okay, what tangibly does it cost us in life to go the distance? How much do we need to invest? And so that's where it got really practical. And I think maybe that's what people are referring to. And I found it helpful too, just to name it. What do you need? You need to create a budget. You need to make a calendar, and you need to follow through, just like anything else in life.
Yep.
And you go, all right, I have a certain amount of time. I have a certain amount of talent, gifting, treasure, things that are, abilities that I can do. And then treasure. I have a certain amount of money, a certain amount of material resources. These are the resources in my life. Time, talent, treasure. How much of each of those am I going to invest in following Jesus? And how much of an investment, how much do I need to budget of those things to be enough to stick through? Because we all know that if you just throw a few pennies at something, not much of an investment, easy to walk away from.
Yep.
Don't spend much time with a relationship, don't really get to know somebody, easy to drift away and not have any contact with that person again. But if you got a close friend that you've spent a lot of time with, that you've invested emotional energy into that relationship, well, that one's going to stick a lot longer than somebody that's just very casual. I mean, the examples are endless of if you invest a little bit in something, very easy to walk away from it. You invest a lot in something, that's probably going to be something that you stick with. Yeah. So budgeting our time, talent, treasure, making a calendar for when we're going to make those investments. And then the hard part, following through and actually doing those things. Listen to the sermon if you want to get the full sort of breakdown of all of those things. But I had a framework that I introduced that I think is pretty practical and helpful, just based on the Old Testament principle of the tithe. So if we take 10% of our work time and we devote that to learning from Jesus, take 40 hours a week, typical work schedule. And if we 4 hours a week devote to attending church, learning, getting in a group with some others, learning, reading the Bible, praying for ourselves, learning, spending time with Jesus, that 4-hour budgeted investment of time put on the calendar every week and followed through on is going to make a life-transforming difference. 10% of our work time. And I think if we took 10% of our personal time, which I tallied up for me, if you get 10 hours of personal time a week, I think you're doing pretty darn well. And if you took one of those hours and every week committed to serving somebody else, whether it's in a serving role in a church or a community organization or whatever it might be, but like on the calendar, an hour a week, doing something that's not for me. I don't get return out of this. This is serving somebody else. You might get the return of the joy, the satisfaction of having served, and that's a wonderful thing. But that 1 hour budget of talent, skill, put on the calendar and followed through on, make a life-transforming impact of all of our time. And then I think those are applications of what the Bible clearly teaches about budgeting our money. And Jesus in the Old Testament said, if you take 10% of your income and you depend on me, this is the depending, it's an act of dependence. It's an act of faith, I would say, for most of us to practice the principle of tithing on our income. And that literally means, like for me and my family, 10% of every dollar I make goes to right back to the church. And it's not the church as an expression of the kingdom of God. It goes right back to depending on God's kingdom. And for me, this is my life. Every time that comes out of my bank account and goes to God's kingdom through our church, it's an act of faith. It's an act of dependence. Because I could think of a lot of things I would do with that 10%. Guaranteed. So to me, it's a very real thing. It's very much an act of dependence. I feel it. But I believe that God is using that to bless and transform the other 90%, and to provide for me, to care for me and my family, maybe in ways I'll never see. I don't know, but the principle in Scripture is trust me and test me. See if I won't bless you for depending on me. And I guess it goes all the way back to that dependence conversation. If you can really put your money where your mouth is
Yeah.
and depend on God where it hurts and it actually costs you something out of your pocket, that's a very tangible act of dependence. And in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, God, in no uncertain terms, promises blessing for that.
Mhm.
Not always financial blessing in return, but blessings of peace, blessings of fruitfulness in relationship, blessings sometimes financially. They can come in all sorts of different ways, but it's very much an act of dependence, this principle of the tithe. And I think it applies to all the areas: time, talent,
Mhm.
treasure. So if we're trying to set a budget, how much do I need to invest? I think that's a pretty good place to start.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's very helpful, and it's a good starting place for people. Craig Groeschel is always talking about, like, even if you can just change 1%
Yeah.
or get 1% better, that compounds over
Yeah.
time, and by the end of the year, that has a massive impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think putting it in terms of that makes it to where people are like, "Oh, okay, I can
Yeah.
do that." Like, I had a curiosity recently. Haley and I were watching a show, and I one of the characters had this hobby slash career. And I was like, I wonder what that process like actually looks like.
Yeah.
Like, what does it take to do that?
Yeah.
I typed in ChatGPT. I was like, all right, you're this thing.
Yeah.
Walk me through what the process looks like from beginning to end. I was like, oh, that's actually not that bad. I was like, I thought it would
Yeah.
be a lot harder than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you just need
Yeah.
someone to break it down, make it simple,
Yeah.
make it palatable, and be like, "Oh, I can actually do that."
Yeah.
So, yeah, I thought it was very helpful.
Yeah. I think it's helpful. And I appreciate that. I think it's helpful for someone who needs to know, okay, what does it mean to invest my life
Mhm,
as a follower of Jesus? I also think it's helpful for people who have been making these kinds of investments, maybe for a lifetime, to stop and reflect on, why am I doing this?
mhm,
Because I do think there's a lot of folks who just were raised this way.
mhm,
Uh, at church, every time the doors are open, serving in a lot of different ways, tithing, giving faithfully, because that's what I was raised to do,
mhm,
because that's what I was taught to do,
mhm,
because that's what I have a conviction about doing. And all those things are good. But I think in this passage of planning, I think we do it because this is what it takes to stick with Jesus. Like we need these tracks to run on, because think about if we weren't doing any of those things.
mhm,
W- Where where would our heart go?
mhm,
Where would our relationship with Jesus go if we weren't practicing anything to learn from him or to serve or
mhm.
to depend on him?
Yeah.
So I think for me that was sort of an eye opener through this particular one, of going, oh yeah, that's a good reason to keep doing these things, and it's a reason I didn't even think about why I do them.
Mhm.
Um, this is what's keeping me on the path.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Mhm. Yeah, slowing down to think, like, what has actually been the impact of
yeah,
me committing to do these things or
yeah,
these practibecause.
yeah,
I think it's, yeah, super helpful.
yeah.
And counting up the cost, we try to avoid difficult things
Mhm,
usually because we pursue comfort. That's kind of our
mhm,
society. We want comfort. But there's actually so much data that shows if you avoid hard things, you're going to lack resilience
mhm.
because hard things in life are going to come whether you
Yeah,
want them to or not. And no matter how much you avoid them.
yeah.
And when they do come, you won't have the resilience you need emotionally
Mhm,
to walk through that in a healthy way. One of the examples they give is like parents who, when raising their kid, and I'm not a parent, okay, but
yeah,
this came from a
yeah.
doctor who has kids. The
I'll vouch
caveat,
for it.
yeah. But he was saying that parents who raise their kids in such a way where anytime their kid has a problem, they just fix it for them. The kid ends up growing up like crippled by
Right.
anxiety and
Yeah.
depression because they don't know how to walk through hardship. They don't know how to solve their own problems. They don't know, how to walk through the difficulty that life
Mhm.
does bring. And I just think it's so important to allow yourself to do hard things so you can learn resilience.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it makes you a healthier human
Yeah.
being to do difficult things, and the data backs it up
Yeah.
over and over again.
Yeah. Well, and that's what like weight resistance training is.
Exactly.
Your
Yep.
muscles need resistance on them to grow
Mhm.
and to be strong and
Yep.
stay healthy.
Yeah. And there was a quote I heard recently specifically about men, um, and it was, "A boy becomes a man when a man is required." I was like,
Mm.
"Man, I like that." I
A
like
boy
that.
becomes a man when a man is required.
I forget who said it. It was
Yeah.
a quote from somebody, but I thought that was pretty good.
I like it.
Yeah. I think that's true for all of
Call to
us, whether
plan.
you're
Yeah.
male, female,
Yeah.
when it's required of you,
Mm-hmm.
you tend to grow into that.
Yeah.
So,
That's good. You
mhm,
probably won't until it's required. Yeah.
yeah.
So go, love, choose, watch, think, plan.
Plan.
You want to tee up the last one?
How about you tee it up? Because you're gonna
Yeah,
preach on
this
it.
is
This
this
is
week.
coming up. Yeah, it's
This is this
fresh
one.
on your brain.
Yeah, no, this is find. Um, and it's the idea of finding what has been lost.
Mm,
And where we're coming to a section in Jesus' teaching where he's getting closer and closer to the cross. He's shifting from more generalized teachings that were addressed to large crowds, that were addressed to his opponents, kind of the skeptics, as well as his disciples.
mhm,
So, in all of these that we've been talking about,
mhm,
right up until actually, plan is kind of marking a shift. This
mhm,
to a section where he's not so much talking to the large crowds anymore.
mhm,
He's not so much, little bit, some, but not as much, dealing with the religious leaders, the Pharisees, the scribes, the ones who were opposing him. And most of the teaching is directed to his disciples, to his disciples, to his disciples. And so what we'll notice is it's getting a little bit higher level. The parables we're getting into some parables now that are a little bit more chin scratchers. Uh, in the next series that we're getting into, we're actually going to continue in Luke, so we're going to see how
mhm.
these things play out, just with a different
Yeah,
application lens.
yeah. Our
Um,
worship team was even saying how hard it was to think about songs
how
that
do you
went
plan
with.
songs for these?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
they had a
yeah,
lot of questions
yeah,
about these passages in
yeah. So a
particular.
little teaser for the next series is called "For God and Neighbor,"
Mhm,
and Jesus he's given his disciples the hard stuff
mhm,
because they can handle it,
mhm.
right? They've been
Yep.
learning. They need some deeper teaching from
Mhm.
Jesus. Not that not that what we've been isn't deep,
Right.
but so there's a lot that we can learn. And this last one, find, is kind of the first installment in this new section here. And this actually has some very familiar parables in it. It's parable of the lost sheep. So, Jesus says, hey, if you got 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, any good shepherd is going to leave the 99 in the pasture where they're safe and go off and find that lost sheep. And when he comes back, everyone's rejoicing. And the point was, there's more rejoicing in heaven over the one lost sheep that returned than the 99 who have been safe all along. And then he tells the parable of the lost coin, which is this, poor woman who lost her coin, and she sweeps every corner of her house and she turns everything upside down, and she will not rest until she finds that coin, because she has very little to live on, and so it's a coin of great value. And so when she finally finds that coin, she rejoices
Mhm,
because she found what was lost. And then it's the prodigal son. So another sort of a good Samaritan, prodigal son highlight reel, parable of Jesus. But yeah, it's the story of someone who growing up in the home of his father, entitled, I want my inheritance, I want to go out, wastes all the money, realizes, I've blown it. Here I am living in a pigsty, and my father's house, even the servants, the lowest of my father's servants, are living
mhm,
way better than I'm living right now. What on earth am I doing? And
mhm,
so with his tail between his legs, he, comes back, and one of the themes of the story is just the father doesn't chastise him, scold him, refuse him. rejoices, welcome back. The older brother doesn't like it so much. What? You're having this great party for, my schmuck younger brother who,
Mm,
wasted everything, but I've been loyal to you all along and you never gave me a big party. And the point is, the rejoicing over what was lost
mm,
and is now found. And there's a lot of pieces of that I get into in the sermon of, um, what it takes to repent so from the prodigal son's perspective, like the lens of coming back and the rejoicing at being accepted
mm,
when you know you've blown it, the rejoicing of the father who gets his son back that he loves. And even though his son, ran away and took for granted all of his love, he still loves him. It's
mm,
a picture of the father, God the Father. But then also the perspective of, this older brother
mm,
that, didn't like it so much. And so whether we rejoice over what has been found or whether we don't rejoice over what was found, um, says something about the condition of our hearts. Um, but then another piece of it is just the effort that God goes to seek us.
mhm,
Jesus is the shepherd that goes and finds the lost sheep. This woman who diligently sought after that lost coin is a picture of the seeking that God seeks us out. And the scripture is clear, like the primary seeker is God. Like he's coming after us more than we're coming after him.
mhm,
Um, and so as a calling, right?
mhm,
Jesus calls us to seek that which is lost. And this is one of the things Jesus said he came to do, to seek and to save that which is lost. And so finding what has been lost is the last of the callings that we're going to see in this section. And kind of brings it all full circle. We started with go,
mhm,
and one of the purposes of going is to find
mhm,
that which has been lost and bring it in
mhm,
to the kingdom. And so the call to find is
mhm.
the last one that we're gonna spend some time on.
Yeah, and I these parables are so popular and well known, and I feel like this, in my opinion, I think that's the call that most of us in the church struggle with the most,
Mm,
or at least don't make as much of a priority. And bear with me. I I think it may be because it's the most costly,
mm,
and it's the least it's not as instant gratification as some of these other ones are. Like,
mhm,
you know, some of the other things we talked about, like you feel the impact of it when you do that thing.
mhm,
But like when you're going after people who are far from God,
mhm,
and you want to show them the love of God by building a relationship with them
mhm.
and inviting them to come and see the goodness of the Lord and experience his love, and that takes a long time.
Yeah,
And you don't know when that moment's gonna come for them
yeah,
because like you said, God's the ultimately the one who's doing
yeah,
the seeking. But like the parable of the banquet, he sends his servants out to send out the invites.
yeah,
Um, but he's ultimately the one who's gonna,
mhm,
uh, bring them back to the pasture.
yeah,
And, I have a very recent, example of this
mhm,
actually, but, Haley and I, there's a live music venue in our community that
yeah,
we enjoy going to. It's close to our house, and, we got to know, one of the workers there, and simply just by asking her what her name is,
mhm,
as we went back, we remembered her name,
yeah,
and so, uh, that's a powerful thing to do for people. Most
yeah,
people, when they go to
yeah,
an establishment, that worker's there to serve you. You
mhm,
don't care to know their name because you're like,
mhm,
"I don't even know if I'm gonna see you again."
mhm,
But when you take the time to learn someone's name, it shows them that they're important and that they matter, and it changes your relationship with them. So,
mhm,
Haley and I started developing a relationship, with her, and just got to know her a little
Mhm.
more. Eventually, she introduced us to her boyfriend, and one time we were there, and it was kind of dead, and the band was and so
Yeah.
we were hanging out with them, and just and got to talking more, and um, he and I kind of got into a more serious conversation. I told him what I do for work, and he mentioned he was interested in getting back in church and had grown up in it, but hasn't been in the church for
Yeah.
a long time, and started to open up to me about, like, all the stuff he's going through with his family, um, and I just said, "Hey, man, like, here's my phone number. Anytime you'd wanna connect or get together, or anytime you wanna come visit our church, like, just
Yeah.
shoot me a text, and we'll save you a seat.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you." So, that was months ago, like, a long time ago,
Yeah.
and this past Saturday, I get a text from him,
Really?
and he said, "Hey, I wanna come to the 10:30 service," and I was like, "Awesome. I'm teaching a class, so I'll be late getting up
Yeah.
there, but I'll tell Haley to save you a seat."
Yeah.
And so he came, and I caught him just as he was coming
Yeah.
in. John, one of our greeters, was
Yeah.
talking to him, and
Yeah.
uh, we're talking SEC football a little bit, and
Yeah.
uh, but after the service, I had to leave early to get
Yeah.
ready for something else, and he told Haley immediately after, and then came down
Mhm.
to where the lunch I was
Mhm.
at was, just to tell me, "Hey, I'm really glad I was here, and I felt like the Lord really spoke to me, through the message." And he's like, "I
Yeah.
really needed this, and I'll
Good.
definitely come back."
Cool.
Um, and it just blew me away, because such a small thing of
Yeah.
learning a server's name
Yeah.
led to her boyfriend,
Yeah.
having an encounter with God.
Yeah.
And it took a long time. Like,
Yeah.
it did
Yeah.
not happen quickly.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we struggle with it,
Yeah.
because coming here and being with our people is not easy, but it feels easy, and
Yeah.
because it has a little bit of instant gratification,
Sure.
whereas going and pursuing the lost
Yeah.
doesn't typically have
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. No, what a great story.
Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
Yeah. And if I hope and pray that it does sort of pan
Mhm.
out, that he would tell a story of, "Hey, man, I was lost. Like I was aimless.
Mhm.
I didn't know,
Yeah.
I don't know that if he was self-described that way, but
Mhm.
in some way, if this experience is a coming home and a
Mhm.
being found, man,
Mhm.
the 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 theme in this section of Jesus' teaching is that's something to rejoice over.
Yeah.
That's going to bring him joy. That's going to bring
Mhm.
you joy. That brings
Mhm.
God joy.
Yeah.
So the joy over something that was lost being found is something that emerges in this passage, that the angels in heaven,
Mhm.
God the Father, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, like it's a party when the lost get found.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and you're right. I do think it's a hard thing because of all our insecurities and everything else. Um, but sort of teeing up the next series, I think that's one of the great things about being called to do it together.
Mhm.
So as we continue in Luke at our church, we're shifting from kind of a personal application emphasis.
Mhm.
So everything that we've been talking about,
Mhm.
all these different callings, we've been making personal applications, daily drills that individually we can do personally. As we move into this next section, we're going to focus on our collective response,
Mhm.
because this call to find is something that God's people, the church, different local churches. We're one local church. There's a lot of local churches, but we all share the same calling
Mhm.
collectively to seek and find people all around who
Mhm.
are lost,
Yeah. And are hurting,
hurting,
and are in
need
need.
healing,
Yeah. He
connection,
beat me to it.
purpose.
Yeah.
And none of us is called to do it on our own individually. We're called to do it together. So we're going to be focusing some of our collective calls
Mhm.
as a church, and what God put us here for. I mean, we named the podcast For Lake Norman
Mhm.
because we believe we were put here to be a blessing to Lake Norman and to help our community here locally find the healing, connection, and purpose that Jesus came to bring, and to do that through all sorts of initiatives and efforts through the church that we can all be a part of, that take insecure, broken, fearful, distracted individuals and link us up together and help us to do something that otherwise individually we wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a beautiful communal
Yeah.
thing because like, you can reach and strike up a relationship with someone that I may not
Mm-hmm.
as easily, and
Yeah.
vice versa,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's part of this beautiful
Yeah.
mosaic that is the kingdom
Yeah.
of God.
So that's what's next. So next week's podcast, we'll be into for God and neighbor,
Yeah, I'm excited
talking
for that.
about the collective call. But if anybody who's interested, so at our church this past Sunday, we created these little key tags as reminders for the series that we've been in. So to help us think about the call to go and love and choose and think and watch and plan and find. It's just they're listed on this little thing that you can put on your key ring. It says the calling. So it's pretty cool. So
And
might be a reason to come. We'll have them available for a little while.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you've been listening to the podcast, come get your key tag.
Yeah,
And it can be a just a little practical reminder of the call that Jesus has for us.
Yeah, and I can't think of a better way to close the podcast. Come join us this Sunday or weeks following.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you, Anson, just for all the work you put in behind the scenes to bring the content to this podcast, but also to our church through sermon series. And we're excited for the For God and Neighbor series. And so we'll see you next week to start talking about that. Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to the end of the episode. If you're enjoying these conversations each week, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button right here on YouTube or the follow button wherever you listen to podcasts. It's quick, it's free, it's easy, and it makes a huge difference in helping our podcast reach more people in the Lake Norman community. Thank you for supporting the For Lake Norman podcast, and we hope you have a great week.